And we're live at RSA. I'm John Swartz. I'm a senior content writer for Techstrong Group, and I'm here with two of the finest Futurum's analysts, Mitch Ashley and Krista Case. Welcome. Yeah, you guys have been to RSA many times, I'm sure. Yep. Mitch was mentioning before we went on how he used to go to the Macworlds. That brings back memories of Moscone South, I believe.
South, it was South, yeah.
Can I just ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Which announcements did you go to back in the day?
Oh,
do you remember?
This was, in the late 80s, early 90s kind of thing. So this is still when Mac was new. The Mac Plus came out, and then the Mac whatever, the SE, and these are like early generations of Mac. And long before, we redid the operating system and brought in the Next OS. And
oh my God.
So it was early days. It was kind of, Mac was still this weird thing. I think they were getting ready for the 90s commercials about, the PC versus the Mac.
Oh yeah,
the white background and that whole
Mac
ad.
versus PC. Yeah, exactly.
Here's the documentation for your PC, and here's your Mac documentation.
Yeah. What was it, the Big Brother commercial or whatever that they did?
Yeah, that was in the Super Bowl, 1984.
Yeah.
That's Ridley Scott directed that.
That was
you see the influence
iconic.
of Blade Runner in that, or even Aliens. I mentioned that because I saw Blade Runner yesterday. I watched it again because I had to.
It's a great, iconic film.
Iconic, right? But I want to ask you, we're going to start off, we're going to do a couple of these, maybe three of these daily analyst takes on RSA. And a lot went on yesterday. I'll leave it up to you to discuss. I'll throw out just a couple of things that we talked about earlier. The Cisco announcements. I wrote about Palo Alto Networks and its acquisition of Protect AI, which I think might foment more deals perhaps this week, if not in the next couple of weeks, as platforms are built out. Minimus, we've mentioned that, managed security. I'm wondering what your takes are. We just started the show and we have a few more days to go, but I'm wondering what you all think.
Yeah, what do you think kind of theme? What's sort of the vibe you're getting, and then we can get in some announcements too.
Yeah, so I think one interesting thing to touch on that occurred yesterday that I think covers a lot of the themes that we're looking at from a cybersecurity perspective in our practice. So naturally the theme of using AI for cybersecurity, and then also the flip side of that coin, which is protecting AI.
Right.
And I bring that up to start not only because, of course, AI is top of mind for everyone in the technology space, never mind just in cyber, but yesterday RSA had the 20th Innovation Sandbox competition. And the company that won is called Project Discovery. And so they're using some open source tools to kind of monitor the attack surface, right? So, again, it's kind of using artificial intelligence to be able to detect threats more quickly, respond more quickly. And what's interesting about this company is that they're doing it from kind of an open source and kind of community-driven perspective to drive that innovation. So that was interesting, and I jotted down a couple of stats here. There's actually more than 200 startups that entered the competition for the Innovation Sandbox.
Is this where the winner gets $5 million?
And that was the other new item this year, John, was that they get $5 million in investment. So this is the first year that there's some financial backing in addition to just kind of the accolade and the credibility. Amazing. So it was very, very interesting.
It's serious when there's some prize money involved, right?
Exactly, for sure. Yep.
Of course, you can't avoid the AI theme playing on that. The theme of the conference, I think, is like one community, many voices, or something like that, to that effect. And so the two things that I'm kind of picking up on is, a few years ago we didn't talk about software security at RSA, and suddenly it started to be in the conversation. Now it's in the conversation, of course, AI security is as well. I think the other part of it is we're at this inflection point of moving from bolt-on AI to how do we build in AI into these products, into workflows, and not necessarily, we all have to own the platform that the customer's going to use. It's much more of a diverse integration. I just came from a Cisco environment talk, and they were talking about that of, the data doesn't have to all necessarily be, everywhere, where every vendor controls their own kind of data collection of it. That it's a multi-vendor world. And
it is.
Just like, Oracle operates in Microsoft's cloud now. Well, how do we all kind of work with each other's technology and data, and how does AI work across that when the data we need isn't in our system, right? In our platform.
Exactly. Yeah.
Palo Alto Networks, not only the acquisition, but they announced their AI security platform. And one of the things that Lee Klarich, who's the Chief Product Officer, was talking a lot about was not just attack surface, but platformization of the architecture. I wonder if maybe this is something we're going to hear more of. You mentioned attack surface. You mentioned this. There's these two kind of dueling themes here. There's the FOMO theme that's coming from the executive and the board and the investors down, and then from the bottom up, there's the element of fear and the consequences of rushing too quickly or integrating too quickly, especially generative AI or AI agents within an organization. So I'm wondering if we might see even more kind of AI security platforms to kind of assuage the enterprises.
Yeah.
So I talked about platforms at the beginning of the year as kind of one of my themes around predictions of everything moving to platforms. And of course, what does that mean? It's another marketing term, right? Or can be used that. I think of it as things that are pre-integrated, maybe not fully, doesn't mean they're not necessarily one product, but they share data across, your domain of expertise, certainly, and the security of that. And I think that's evolving now to, and not just our stuff, right? Let's talk about the data outside of our own platforms. But the tie to what you're talking about, John, is Futurum did a study earlier this year of CEOs talking about what their plans around for AI. They're making big bets. There's huge expectations around AI. And aside from the claims of how many people we don't need for this or whether developers are going to write code or not, sort of the marketing, blitz stuff, is they're making real bets on they need AI to deliver. And now everyone else is figuring out, well, we better figure out how to make it deliver. And that's what we're seeing is people starting to say, not just we have AI, but what's the difference it's going to make?
Yep, I think a couple comments that I'm seeing too. So absolutely, kind of the platform story is one that, I'm tracking as well this year. And I think it's along the theme of the interoperability as well. It's not realistic that customers are going to be looking for one security platform, but rather I see they might want a platform, for example, for identity security, right? That can then, to your point, Mitch, sort of share data and feed into some of our tools in the Security Operations Center, such as, a SOAR and XDR type platform, and there's that sort of bidirectional integration between the two that can, for example, have one platform take action based on what another one is seeing. So we're, absolutely seeing that as well. And, Mitch, you were mentioning sort of almost putting a little bit of weight behind AI and what it can do. And I think we're definitely still seeing that. You have to crawl before you walk, before you run. And so I think, especially when we look at the Security Operations Center, they're still, I would say, getting their feet wet with what are the potential use cases and what are the potential value, whether it be time savings or faster incident response that they can see. And so I think we've seen over the last year since the last RSA, I would say we've seen a little bit of progress there, but there's still, I think, is a lot of work to be done.
It's like it seems at RSA or even at Black Hat, you have, especially at RSA, you have a lot of marketing, it's kind of building into the hype, of course. So there are going to be a lot of product announcements and maybe some sort of deals or acquiring talent or acquiring products. But there's also this huge influx of studies underscoring what's at stake and the issues that are out there, the things that could burn a company. Like, I'm not saying it's paranoid discussion, but it's like a realistic discussion on here is what's at stake, and here's some surveys or studies that show there's a definite anxiety or FUD, as Alan had said earlier, around what this technology can mean. I think that's kind of healthy, actually, as part of this discussion here. It's like it's grounded in reality.
Yeah.
So I think the difference is, I was doing a panel yesterday, and we were talking about kind of application development, how AI is changing the security of apps. And we made an analogy to the cloud. And in the first couple of years as cloud is, no, we don't put anything in the cloud because it's not secure. That sort of security was the roadblock to the cloud until we kind of got past that we were okay with it. And of course, there's data sovereignty and still things today. But this time, kind of everybody's at the table. Maybe we're not all synchronized and working together of security and development and operations and cloud or whatever or business, but everybody's kind of trying to push the bar forward in their respective areas, sometimes together, which I think we'll see what the difference that makes. I'm not saying it's nirvana and it's all going to be easy this time.
Yeah.
People are vibe coding and writing code that's just as insecure, maybe more unsecure as before, but we have a lot of work to do.
Mitch, that's interesting, because do you think that what happened with the cloud was a good primer for what's happening now? Because it seems as this is an acceleration of every other wave of technology before it. Like, it's bigger, faster, there's more benchmark testing, there's more models coming out, there's more promises of what could possibly happen with minimal kind of acknowledgement of what could go awry. But I'm just wondering, given what happened in the cycle with the cloud and data, whether that maybe helped some of the companies in their transition to AI in a weird way?
Well, let me throw this out and see what y'all think. I think that was the primer to the primer. The primer, the OG primer, if you will, was COVID, and we have to move fast.
Yes.
We have to make decisions, and we have to go.
Yep.
And we don't have to let everything hold us up to be able to get things done, and we'll backtrack and make some adjustments. But going to the cloud was that, okay, wait a minute, okay, we got to do this first. Okay, some people got ahead of us. Now we have to retrench. Let's redo it. COVID taught us that we can operate much more efficiently. I mean, do you think that to me is kind of where we're building from? Does that make sense?
I agree. I think it underscored the need for to be able to respond very quickly, and the need to be more preemptive. So I had a number of interviews in April 2020, primarily on kind of the IT operations side. I live and breathe the data protection space a lot, and the conversations kept coming back to, this was a disaster response for our company, the need to shift practically all of our employees to working remotely overnight. And we were caught flat-footed because either we didn't test frequently enough or we didn't test enough at scale, right? So I use that as an example to say, I think there's a mindfulness of sort of not getting caught flat-footed again and being able to be more preemptive in addition to being sort of reactive.
Are you ever worried about just the speed and rate at which things are being announced, just in general in terms of AI and in terms of how companies are going to do you think there's a real fear that something could go haywire eventually for a major, and I'm asking you this because there are large Fortune 200 companies that have absolutely no idea, they'll admit, about AI, and they're trying to make their way into this, and I'm wondering if one of them miscalculates and ends up getting burned. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think there's a possibility of it happening.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective, we had a number of conversations yesterday around agentic, right? And so now the ability for the AI model, or the AI agent, to be able to start to formulate some decisions and then begin to take some action autonomously. And the big kicker is making sure that there is still that human oversight and some guardrails, right? So whether it be in the security operations center, maybe the security analyst wants to be able to, review why there's a recommended action based on a threat that was detected, for example. So we are seeing that on the vendor side, they're trying to build in that explainability and still sort of have that oversight. But it is very interesting. I think we're in early days still in terms of understanding, how are these AI, applications and models formulating their decisions and, potentially taking action.
Yeah, I think we've learned a lot about how these things go, right? On the very edge of it, it's people make statements about 90% of our code will be developed by AI in 6 months. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, maybe there's a few, very small few that will be there in 6 months. Maybe someday that'll be true.
You said the rate was not even close to that.
Oh,
right?
yeah, well, it's how many people, we have data that shows that developers, platform engineers are using AI at a rate about 40%.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean? It could be querying ChatGPT for something. It could be something integrated into their development tool or their operation. Yes, any range of things. So I think we're going to go there. It isn't like the cloud where we said, we're not sure this makes sense. This is other people's computers, no different than what we do now. This is something I think we all know we're going to be adopting. But the bipolar part of it is, but we also know it's early. We know everybody's learning, right? I mean, the data scientists and the AI engineers might be on the forefront, but most of the organization isn't there, and they're trying to say, I can't waste money on this just go buy a bunch of GPUs and then say, create AI code for me and we'll have magic. Like, I need to show value for this in this climate. It's even getting more so that way.
There was like a few months ago, there was another conference here, was I think a Salesforce TDX, and a friend of mine, guy I used to work with actually down the street here 30, 40 years ago, he's a Mark Benioff whisperer. He's a consultant who tells him what he should know about AI. And my friend who was at the TDX show told me that he sensed a large scale of frustration with companies grappling with AI, the promise versus the reality, and that their adoption wasn't even close. They will adopt, but he said they're being much more cautious. And so I think, like what you have said before, Mitch, it's going to happen. It's just not going to happen in the next several months. It's going to take maybe a year.
It'll be very uneven. The future's very uneven.
Yes, and he was saying that was the same. That was his same conclusion from that show, and he was getting it from the grassroots level. And he was mentioning this. I don't know if he told Benioff, because Benioff doesn't like to hear bad news, given my own personal interactions with him, good and bad. But that's something that just keeps cropping up, and it makes sense.
Well, speaking of bad news, the Techstrong production gods, I hear, are like, giving us the hook here. Okay, we got to get off.
All right,
so we have to have something left to talk about tomorrow.
I know.
Right. Well, it's great having you all. We're gonna have a lot of fun here this week in San Francisco. The weather's beautiful.
Fernando will join us tomorrow.
Yes,
Fernando will join us tomorrow,
Yep.
and hang on, and we'll be back soon.
morning. Welcome to Techstrong TV, day 2 of our coverage, live coverage of RSAC from Moscone West in San Francisco. This is Techstrong's 10th year of covering RSAC, but of course our fearless leader, Alan, has been coming here for much, much longer than that. We've been talking with cybersecurity experts about really the evolution of the security landscape. And my next guest is Eyal Benishti, the CEO and founder at IronScales. Eyal, welcome to Techstrong TV. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Lisa. Glad to be here.
I love the name IronScales. It's such a powerful, bold statement. Talk a little bit about, you said you founded it about 10 years ago. What were some of the gaps in the market at the time from a security perspective that you thought we can solve this?
I think there were two main gaps. I think the first one was that phishing was still making it to the mailboxes. As a security researcher and malware analyst, that was where I was finding all of the great ideas on what to investigate, research. And the second is that teams were spending a lot of time dealing with these type of threats, like, getting them out of their mailboxes, making sure that people are aware. And there was a big shift in the landscape where threat actors were starting to understand what the defenders are doing, what the SECs are doing, and looking for new, more clever ways to phish businesses and employees.
Phishing has evolved so fast. It used to be clunky, basic email scams that like spelling errors, and it was just obvious it was a phishing scam. But walk me through the evolution of 1.0, 2.0, where are we now, 3.0, deepfakes. It's just evolving at breakneck speed.
Yeah. So when we started, it was really the phishing 1.0 problem, where threat actors was mostly sending bad links and bad attachments and trying to lure employees to click on a link or download an attachment and install some backdoor on their computer. And then it really evolved. With the security email gateways kind of scanning links and scanning attachments and making sure that all the known threats are out of the inbox. The threat actors, they evolved into sending emails with no links and no attachments. And instead of trying to hack your computer, they are hacking the business process. They're trying to make you pay an invoice, which is not real, it's fake.
Okay, pay an invoice.
Or wire some money, or go and buy something, or do something that you're not supposed to do as an employee. And when you think about what companies are using that day in order to protect against emails, they couldn't find this email because there was nothing bad.
They looked so normal.
They looked very normal. It was textual, like the semi-legitimate request to go and do something. And this is where the phishing 2.0 era basically began. And we realized that in order to really protect organizations and people against phishing, you really need to go down from the gateway level to the mailbox level. We have to live and breathe what's happening in everyone's mailbox. Really, really understand it. What communication looks like, what can be trusted, what can't be trusted. Understand language for the first time, using LLMs and NLPs to extract intent out of emails and understand that this people is asking someone to pay something, and really start to understand that this person really sounds like or looks like someone that's working.
Like your CEO asking you to wire money or something. This impersonation of people is scary.
It's always someone or something that you already know.
That you're familiar with.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. This is kind of the basics of phishing and how you kind of gain trust and make sure that people will go and do what you're doing. And that was the phishing 2.0 era, and we started to implement a lot of the smart AI and ML models in order to be able to build baselines and find anomalies and things that are kind of deviating from what we consider to be a trusted communication or a trusted email. It was proven to be super effective against, the BECs, the business email compromise, and the vendor account compromise, account takeover attacks, and all of the next-gen type of phishing emails that the SEC was really not doing a great job in kind of keeping out of the gate. The second thing is that, again, we found that in the phishing 1.0 world, security teams were doing a lot of manual work in order to keep the hygiene of their environment and their inboxes, writing and running scripts, doing a lot of signature writing and rules writing, and they really kind of spend a lot of time with their email security solution in order to try and keep it up to date and play this kind of catch-up game with the threat actors. So in phishing 2.0, we've realized and decided that it's time to really go and automate.
I was going to say automation sounds like the winner here.
You have to go and automate a lot of this kind of stuff that they're doing, from the most kind of investigative parts of the security analyst job to the even more kind of response part, which we actually go and claw back emails back from employees' mailboxes. It was a novel idea. It was like how you can actually go and pull back emails that were already, and the answer was yes, you can do it. If you can do it in a very short amount
Already
of time.
opened?
Not open,
Okay.
but delivered.
Delivered.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because we knew it takes about 82 seconds from the time it was delivered to the time it's opened on average. And this 82 seconds, it's a lot of time that we can act.
Yes.
Not to mention if we can do it in under 1 second, which is what we can do in 99% of the cases, then the problem goes away. And by doing that, first we reduced risk, and second we reduced in more than 90% the amount of time that the security teams are dealing with phishing emails in order to keep them out of the mailboxes.
The automation is key there because you were saying, with this rapid evolution of phishing, security teams don't have the time. I'm sure that's a full-time job for several FTEs to just monitor a business email account across employees, across the globe and regions. So the automation is critical there, especially because the sophistication of phishing is just going up and up and up. How is AI maybe a double-edged sword there, like leveraging it for to be able to detect these really sophisticated phishing scams, but also the phishers having the technology at their disposal to dial up the sophistication?
It's a great question. So with the introduction of technologies like GPT, for example, we've seen an increase of 1,000% from 2022 to 2023 in AI-generated phishing.
Phishing scams,
and this
1,000%.
Before the peak. If you look at North America alone, it was close to 2,000%. It was 1,700 something percent, which is a crazy amount of emails. And the other thing is that phishing in 2025 or even in 2024, it's not just about email anymore. Phishing and email used to be synonyms. Email phishing, it was like almost the same thing. Now we are seeing new modalities kind of being introduced. Voice, deep fake voices.
That's scary because it sounds so legit. Oh, and videos too.
Videos.
Yes.
So they're using more than the email to phish employees. They can use your mobile, they can use your Teams, Slack, Zoom.
Wow.
And we're seeing kind of real cases.
That attack surface just going like this.
Now you need to kind of be able to look at all the communication channels and make sense out of all of it and detect not just AI-generated stuff in the inbox, but you need to be able to detect AI-generated stuff in your Teams and in your Slack and in your Zoom and make all the relevant correlation, because phishing now is a multi-step, multi-modality, multi-channel.
Yes.
Type of
omnichannel.
So it's evolving again, and it's evolving in a very rapid pace because AI is doubling every 6 months now, which is pretty.
The acceleration is, like I said, breakneck speed, and it's not going to slow down. It's only going to somehow get faster, will the sophistication of phishing.
It's getting faster, it's open source, so everyone has access to this type of tools right now, so they can use it. Like you said, it's not just for the defenders, for us to extract intent out of emails, it's for them to go and generate new type of attacks as well.
Where do you see phishing 4.0? Where is it going? And what's the time frame? What's next for it, for example?
I think for the next 2 or 3 years, we will still see kind of the evolution of phishing 3.0, because we're in the very early days of phishing 3.0. And this is where companies, and again, if you ask Gartner, they say that in less than 5 years, more than 50% of the organizations will have some type of deep fake security control. Currently, it's single digit, very low single digits. So
it's only going to increase.
Increase significantly. So I think we will see the evolution and the adoption of the controls to control deep fake. I think we'll see a huge increase in how we are training our employees and users. Look, at the end, we got to the point that the trust is broken. Trust is under attack. You can't really...
but it's currency, so it's so important to be able to have that with whatever customers, business customers, consumers. That trust is it's required.
For 10 years, we're trying to teach people not to trust everything they see in their inbox.
Can't. Exactly.
Now we need to go and teach them, hey, you can't even believe things that you hear, even if it sounds like someone that you know, or even if you see them on the other side of the screen, that might not be them.
Right.
The CEO, the CFO, your colleague that is currently on the screen in front of you might be an AI-generated version of them. And that's a big leap. We really struggle with getting people kind of used to the fact that email should be kind of scrutinized before you're engaging with that. Now to get them to the next level will require a lot of work, a lot of awareness and education.
I was going to say, how much of your time is really spent on that awareness, education piece? Because humans are often the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain, but can be the strongest. But I imagine it's with all the generations alive today in the workforce, there are some that are more susceptible than others, but how much time do you spend teaching businesses why this is so incredibly vital to their brand reputation?
So we highly encourage it. It's part of our platform, and we always say that your people can be either a liability or an asset. It's up to you to decide how you want to utilize
Absolutely.
them. If you really invest in a good program and a product that can go and give them not just the knowledge, because people know about phishing.
Sure.
They need better tools. They need tools that can augment their experience with email. They need tools that they can report back and get some feedback about what they're seeing in their inbox. And if you do that, it's not just that you get a better kind of last layer of defense, which is a must. Like, there is no way, even with the smartest AI on the world, that we can stop 100% of the attacks. There will always be this human kind of in-the-loop component that we will need to kind of take a second look and say, you know what? This is fishy. This is something my security team needs to know about. And not just that, we need them because we want them, and we actually do that. We use them in order to feed their feedback back to the machine and tell the machine, hey, this is something that a human reported to us. Okay. And a user expert, like a security analyst, validated for us. Learn, adapt. This is why we call our AI adaptive AI. Adapt AI. And get better so it won't happen again. So if you're not closing this loop, and you're not closing this loop quickly, you're always one step behind. And with AI, you're 2 steps behind, because they can go and generate so many different new instances of phishing that it's like...
Yes.
And now AI is becoming agentic. Just to add some more complexity into phishing 3.0.
Sure.
AI is becoming agentic, which means it will be very autonomous in nature.
Yes.
Which even means that even the threat actors, they don't really need to sit down and even prompt GPT to generate an email. They can just say, hey, go and phish Techstrong. Find a way, find employees, find their areas of interest, write the phishing email, deliver it, create the landing pages, do all the things, and AI will go and do all these kind of things. So we are now at the point that we cannot be reactive anymore. We can't sit back with our defenses.
No, but how do we get proactive? Is that possible with the speed with which everything is evolving?
You fight fire with fire.
Yeah.
So if we fought against AI with AI, we're going to fight agents with agents.
Okay.
You have to build agents that will help you be more proactive about how we should go about defending our inboxes, how we should train our users. Even for the SOC, the analysts, we can do much more with agentic AI in order to take over more of the responsibilities and even automate further a lot of the things that they're doing on a daily basis. So we have to step up.
Yeah.
And we have to kind of introduce new ways and new technologies in order to tackle those kind of phishing 3.0, agentic deepfake issues. We have to do it pretty fast, otherwise we'll catch ourselves.
Right, that speed is critical. Last question for you as we wrap up here. What excites you from a security perspective? We've seen, like I mentioned, the threat landscape is just getting more spread out. AI brings more complexity, yet every organization has to have an AI story. What positives do you see from a cybersecurity perspective that we're going in?
I think the biggest one is for the first time in history, defenders will be able to be proactive. We really tend to be defensive. We are putting our technical controls, our antivirus, or endpoint detection response, and email kind of security component, and we are sitting and waiting for something to happen, and we are hoping that our defenses will catch it and stop it. And yes, we are training our users as well. But for the first time, we can go out there and say, hey, we want to really be proactive and understand how threat actors view us and how they're going to attack us. Let's do it before they do it to us, and make sure that we are ready. Let's do this continuous battle test and make sure. Let's not hope. Hope is not a good strategy.
No, it's not a good strategy.
Being proactive and making sure that we are ready is something that is now doable, and what we believe the future of cybersecurity is going to look like, thanks to AI.
I like that. Ayal, thank you so much for joining me on Techstrong. This is a fascinating conversation. The evolution of phishing, it's going to be so interesting and kind of scary to see where it goes, but great to know that there are proactive defenders like Iron Skills. Thank you for sharing your insights and your time with us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Mine too. For my guest, I'm Lisa Martin. You're watching Techstrong TV live from the floor of RSAC. This is day 2 of 4 days of coverage on Techstrong TV, but you know that because you've been watching since yesterday. Stick around. Our next guest joins us in just a minute.
Hey everyone, we're back here live at RSA conference in Moscone West. Kind of, this time of day everyone's in sessions. The din dies down so you can hear me. Excuse me. I'm happy to introduce you to my next guest. If you follow Techstrong at all, he's been on a number of times, and he's the CEO of Checkmarx. And if you, again, follow Techstrong, you know we have a very tight relationship with Checkmarx, and we feature them a lot. But let me introduce you to Sandeep Jari.
Yeah.
Did I say it right?
Yeah, Jari. Yeah.
Jari. Sandeep Jari. I know Sandeep actually from before Checkmarx and Tricentis, and he has a long track record of making successful companies. Sandeep, welcome to Techstrong TV. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure to have you here.
A year ago, we were here 2 years ago.
Yes, we were in the same booth.
Yeah.
They're giving you the same booth every year. So Sandeep, it's been about 2 years now with Checkmarx. You've really, not that it needed a turnaround, don't get me wrong, but you've really left your mark, imprint on Checkmarx. I see it in the personnel, I see it in the messaging, I see it in the product direction. I see it in its standing in the market, right? Checkmarx has kind of reclaimed its spot as a leader in the AppSec market, right? But you know how it is. If you're not moving forward, you're dying in this market, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So a lot of things going on. If you wouldn't mind, share with our audience a little bit of what you see as the big things going on with Checkmarx.
So at Checkmarx, 2 years ago, we launched, or 4 years ago, we launched a product called Checkmarx One,
yes,
which was our cloud-native platform, but was a comprehensive platform. And when we talked 2 years ago, we had just started mainstreaming our customers. Over the last 2 years, we've made incredible progress on Checkmarx One. It now is more than 50% of our installed base, and we are scanning over 450 billion lines of code every month. We have also, it is the most comprehensive platform for AppSec. It has SAST, obviously, SCA, but we've added malicious code, we've added secrets, containers, we have added DAS, so it's really the most comprehensive platform, which is why most of our customers are now moving. We are at more than 50%. By the end of this year, we should be at 70 to 75% of our customers having moved. We'll have some laggards, primarily government agencies and some very large enterprises. But the move to Checkmarx One has been quite incredible. It's one of the fastest moves to a cloud-native platform from an on-prem solution. And like I said, we are scanning literally more than 1 million projects a month, more than 450 billion
almost
lines
a half a trillion.
Yeah.
Lines of code a month.
Yeah, well, half a trillion, which is rapidly increasing. As of the end of last year, we were doing 350. So literally in 1 quarter, it's gone from 350 to 450. So it's really accelerating. And the reason for that is Checkmarx One is not only a comprehensive platform, but it's also a very dev-centric platform. Yes. So we have IDE plugins all the way, so it really shifts left, and that's what's driving a lot of the increased scanning, because now developers individually can kick off scans as they're writing code. Literally with every pull request they can scan, and that's what's driving it. So that's been a huge focus for us.
To me, it's riding on two very important waves in the market. One is it's a platform. We were talking, we did Techstrong Gang this morning. I don't know if you saw Palo Alto acquired some AI company yesterday. And it's a move towards a platform. You've been in security a long time, as long as I have. You know this. In security, small companies make products. Medium companies buy the small companies, and those products become features.
Yeah.
Bigger companies buy the medium companies, and those products and features get rolled into a platform. Because with a platform, you have an ecosystem. You have the company's entire platform of things that plug in. You have third-party partners, whether it's API or however, that plug in. And it allows you to do things that you can't do at just a product level. It's that platform. So I think it's really, especially when we talk about like the move to cloud native, moving from on-prem, modern application modernization, microservices, a product, a point product, it just doesn't cover it. You need that platform. Secondly, is the idea of who's the user of this platform. I think, unfortunately, the road is littered with security companies who thought they were going to do DevSecOps nirvana by building security products for security people that app dev would use. App dev doesn't use security products. It's just, that's for security people. I think a lot of companies got hung up on that. One of the nice things about Checkmarx One is it is a security product, but designed for the app dev audience.
Yes.
And that's, it sounds subtle, but it's not subtle. It's a major to do here. So I think that is a big reason for the success.
Yeah, actually, when I joined the company, I met with literally, reached out to 100 of our CISOs, and they raised exactly the 2 points you're saying. We don't want point solutions. It's too noisy. We want a single platform. And two, we want to shift left, move away from only security using it to developers using it. So those were the two design centers of Checkmarx One. And over the last 2 years, we have spent a lot of effort on making sure that the developer experience is incredible. Because developers, at the end of the day, don't care much about security. They don't like security. It's a barrier to their speed of innovation. And therefore, our job as security vendors is to make sure that while we give them the efficacy of having good, deep security, we make it also easier. So we have spent a lot, and one of the things we've announced recently is we have an ASPM built into our platform. But the ASPM originally was initially was targeted at the security professionals who could take feeds from all the engines and then have an ASPM to kind of sort it out and do correlations and exploitability and the like. And what we've done, we just recently announced, is we brought the ASPM capability right into the IDE, again for the benefit of the developer, so that it makes it very easy for the developer to be able to remediate, to understand the priorities of which vulnerabilities they should be working on, and then be able to remediate. So we've also added AI help capability in the IDE. So when you get a vulnerability, you get told how, one, it explains to you what it is, and it gives you suggestions on how to remediate it. So that's all driven towards making life really easy for the developer. So.
Wonderful. Not everyone watching this is a security person, so let me ask you, ASPM stands for Application
Security Posture Management. So it allows you to take vulnerabilities that are identified by multiple application security engines, static analysis, open source, and the like, and pull it all together in one area, one place where you can do correlations and prioritization. So that's what ASPM does.
Absolutely. You know, you were describing the mission of trying to create an environment that allowed developers to go fast and secure and get code out. And that really describes the whole platform engineering mission, if you will. You know, and for those who don't know, Checkmarx partners with us and the platformengineering.org community on our platform engineering show. I actually did a roundtable webinar, I think last week, with some of the Checkmarx and other people. We get tremendous, the audience is so involved asking questions. They drive the whole thing. But it really is where the rubber's meeting the road right now. You mentioned AI as well, Sandeep. this whole show here this year is AI. And I get it. Everyone wants to have, it's, remember when the cloud came out? What's your cloud story? Every VC asks you, what's your cloud story? Today it's, what's your AI story? It's hard to stand out with 600 vendors on that floor, and they're all touting their AI. Talk to us about the Checkmark's AI strategy, if you will.
So our AI strategy is multifold. One, we are using AI and agentic products to redefine AppSec. The traditional way of doing AppSec was, like you said, the security people would look at the results, prioritize things, and then send it over to developers. Today, with agentic solutions, what we can do is take all those vulnerabilities, prioritize them, and allow developers with one click to be able to fix them. So our strategy is to have agents that are targeted at different personas. One agent targeted at the developer, another agent targeted at the AppSec administrator or the AppSec team that does the prioritization, sets the policies, sets policies across different projects and the like. And the third agent targeted at executives that want to look at application security from a risk perspective. And so we plan to have 3 such agents out in the market shortly. And so that's around what can we use AI to make AppSec a whole lot better, going to redefine AppSec, if you may, on how it's used at an enterprise. And platform engineering becomes really important there because every enterprise that I'm talking to wants to move from DevOps to DevSecOps, and you can't do that without integrating this fully. So our agents will help further speed up the remediation of vulnerabilities, which is ultimately the goal of AppSec. The second part is a whole set of new vectors that get introduced because of AI, because of LLM. So we have, our research team is doing a lot of work on what are the new threat vectors that come about because of AI, and this is things like, prompt injection or hallucinations. How do we capture that? It's a lot of what Palo Alto bought in Protect AI.
Right.
We actually were partnering with them as well, but we continue to have our own products on that. So it's both. It's twofold, if you may. So.
Absolutely. $700 million, that acquisition, a lot of money.
But everyone needs the buzz. So.
Buy a lot of buzz for $700 million. But anyway, let me ask you another question. Though. Again, you've been in security, you're a successful multi-time CEO. Do you worry about, what are we going to do? Will we have too many agents? Everybody has 2 agents, 3 agents, another agent here, there an agent, here an agent, everywhere an agent. How many is too many?
Yeah, I think the way to think about agents is they're really. I know agents are defined as really some things that are operating fully autonomously. I think that's a long ways off in that I was talking to a CISO of a large bank yesterday, and he said, for security, we actually want agents that can help resolve things, but we don't want auto-remediation. We want human intervention. So like we were talking earlier, AI is one of those things which, it's not that AI will replace humans completely. AI will replace humans with humans that are enabled with AI. Right? Or AI-enabled humans will replace humans, not that AI will replace humans. And we think of it that way. Our developer-focused agent, for example, will have the ability for human intervention, where we think of it as you can do auto-remediation. At some point, you might be comfortable enough to be able to do that for a certain class of vulnerabilities, but for a different class of vulnerabilities, for the more critical ones, people would want some human intervention to have some oversight on it. to your question of too many agents, well, we'll see how these go. Some of these agents are just AI washing. They're not really a whole lot different than what people have had before. They're presented in a different way. So I think there might be a little bit of overhyping, if you may. But the other aspect is that with MCP and A2A, you will have agents talking to each other, and what every enterprise we talk to are just as worried about the governance around these agents, where you need auditability, you need traceability. Like the bank CISO I was talking to, he said one of the main things, one of the big things they need to be able to demonstrate to their regulators is not just that they don't have any vulnerabilities, but the ones that they discovered, how did they resolve them? How did they discover them? How did they resolve them? And is there a record of all of that? So, it's still evolving. I think it's really exciting, all the agentic stuff, where you're making it, I think of it as a dramatically simpler user interface, if you may, with a lot of intelligence built in. So.
Agreed. I think of them almost as ephemeral, right? Because they do a specific job, and when they're done with that job, they go back into the box, you know what I mean? But I do think what you said about we will have humans empowered by AI, not humans replaced by AI.
Correct.
At least for as long as you and I are going to be involved. Right. Down the road, maybe different, but who knows?
I mean, if you take even code, the quintessential use case of using coding agents, even there, the most powerful coding agents are the ones where they assist humans and humans are involved. You're not having people write things automatically without any human oversight. So.
Absolutely. Just one last area I want to talk return to check marks. So you've got the Checkmarks One platform. Got so much going on. AppSec is such a dynamic market right now. For our audience out here, what do you think over the next year? We'll sit down we're going to sit down in a month or two, but not in person. But for the next year, what should we focus on? Where should the focus be?
So the trend I see in AppSec is really what we talked about earlier, which is how do we, every enterprise I'm talking to is looking at consolidating their functions, consolidating their AppSec vendors, and I think this year is going to further accelerate that with agents that are sitting over all of these engines. I think it further accelerates that. The other aspect is people really want to get the shift left move. It's not yet fully happened. There's still large enterprises that are trying to embed security into the development workflow, and I think we'll continue to see that. So at Checkmarks, we continue to focus on the developer experience, continue to drive functionality across the platform, like we've added secrets, we've added containers, we've added DAST, to really make it completely comprehensive, so there's only one. I don't think there'll be a consolidation of all security platforms, as you were talking about, where a Palo Alto buys up everything from code to cloud. But we are very focused on AppSec and being the best enterprise solution for AppSec. And that's what we are focused on. That's what we hear from customers that they want, especially the larger enterprises that have complex environments. So that's what we are focused on.
I love it. Checkmarks.com.
Yes, checkmarks.com.
CheckMarx.com. Sandeep, a pleasure.
Okay.
One of the great gentlemen in the Valley here, if you ever get a chance to meet him in person. We're live. Thank you. We're live here at RSA. We'll be back in a moment with more coverage. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Techstrong TV Live, Day 2 RSAC in San Francisco at Moscone West. This is Techstrong's 10th year of covering RSAC. It is never a dull moment on the show floor. This is Day 2, as I said, of our coverage, having some great, really informative conversations with cybersecurity experts, and my next guest is one of them. Paul Davis joins me, the field CISO at JFrog. It's great to have you, Paul. Thank you for coming back to Techstrong TV.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So you've been in cybersecurity for a long time.
Yeah.
The evolution. I just mean you have wisdom. The evolution.
That's still old as well.
No, that's a euphemistic way of saying that. I can tell what kind of interview we're going to have. We're going to have a lot of fun.
They're gonna
Talk about the evolution of the risk landscape that you've seen in your time and where we are now.
It's got bigger.
Yeah.
The great thing is that like technologies are evolving and innovations evolving at a faster speed.
Yeah.
The world's got smaller, and with that, we now need to handle bigger. And the problem with security is we have a problem saying no. So whenever there's a new risk, we add it to our portfolio. So, and a lot of times we're trying to understand new ways of doing things and then work out how to protect people. And so risk is growing and more complex, and we have more data.
Right. And more apps.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even more types of people, like agents and agentic AI. So
Right.
that's a whole new identity type.
Right.
So, I talk about we have to protect the people, the property, the business. Now we've got to protect another type of people that can create errors called AI.
The agents. Yeah. I just saw on JFrog's website the Software Supply Chain State of the Union 2025, and some of the stats were 458 new packages brought in by the typical organization per year, 38 new packages a month, over 25,000 secrets detected. And also, organizations have at least 7+ different security tools. Many have over 10.
Yep.
Lots of complexity. You talked about the volume of data is only growing. There's more software than ever. There's more apps than ever. There's now AI, which is like a double-edged sword. Talk to me about the state of the union for the state of the supply chain of software.
There's some good news in there,
Excellent.
but there's also bad news.
Yeah.
Like, for example, secrets and API keys. This is really, really simple to implement and protect. You automate it. You scan for secrets and API tokens, and that's the thing. We discovered that actually we got worse by like 67%. So year on year, leaking of secrets got worse. So as an industry, how can we get that so wrong?
Right.
When we have all these tools out there that can actually detect and warn people as they're coding, hey, you put a password in, right? Or when you're actually putting the package together, it can detect it. This is not like rocket science. This is basic steps, and we got worse.
Why?
I don't know. It's like asking why the OWASP top 10 is still the same top 10,
Yeah.
right? So you kind of look at that. And then the other aspect of it is the new packages. That number you mentioned is just brand new packages you've never used in your organization. That doesn't take into account all the new versions of open source packages coming in, right? So that's just brand new things. But every time a new package comes in, you need to be looking at, is it dangerous? Has it been compromised, etc.? So that number's vastly huge. And another bad thing is that a lot of organizations are still doing manual reviews.
Still.
So how can you do that? I mean,
You can't keep up.
yeah, I pity the security professional that has to assess vulnerabilities. Monday morning, here's this giant pile of vulnerabilities. How do I handle it?
Right.
Yeah.
And how do they prioritize?
Well,
Yeah.
well, no.
Really not strategically?
Well,
Or the volume is so overwhelming?
there are tools and capabilities
yeah.
that you prioritize.
Yeah.
And there's different aspects. You look at the severity, look at where it's being used. You have your CMDB, is it a critical asset?
Yeah.
Where is it? And it's not just in development, where a lot of people just focus on doing development.
Yeah.
It's actually what's running in production you need to worry about as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So security efforts, the developers want to develop, they want to go fast,
Yes.
they want to do their jobs, but they're spending a lot of time on security. Where is DevSecOps in its maturity these days in 2025?
I think we understand the principles.
Okay.
It's just the execution. And there is a gap between developers and security.
Is it cultural?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's also history. It's funny. I've always run security organizations as a service to help inside these companies. And that helping capability. But all everybody remembers is security saying no. And we're not there. And ironically, the synergy or the goals of security and developers are the same. The mindset is the same. You take a developer, they're given a problem, they have to find a solution.
Yeah.
You've got somebody in IR, they're looking to how's this person getting in and how can I block it? It's the same mindset, that curiosity. We should tap into it and embrace it. And I think that's a big thing. I've always said we should enable developers to be security dweebs, nerds like us, because there's great synergy. But we have to open up the conversation.
Yeah.
And there's a gap where security organizations a lot of times still don't understand the world of development. There's a gap between understanding the life cycle, the things, and we just have to start building bridges.
Yeah.
So that's for me a big thing.
Could AI be that bridge?
Well, AI is an interesting journey. I have a terrible joke.
Please share it.
Okay. How do you know if some software has been generated by a Gen AI agent?
It has lots of emojis in it.
Nope. It's documented. Bad joke. Yeah, so
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah. but no, the Gen AI is really good if you're not using it for generative. It's really good to help a developer. I use it myself.
I'm a big fan for creative inspiration.
Yeah, I can program in 12 different languages, and trying to remember how to write a code in C versus Python is like different. So you kind of run your mindset through that and say, and it gives you but you have to have expertise. So it is an assistant. It is there to help. The one thing I think is the gap is we're not using AI for really in-depth finding vulnerabilities or issues with your code.
Is that in the roadmap? Is that in the pipeline?
Well, I think I'm seeing a lot of it out there where people are starting it, but we could also automate it.
Yes.
And ironically, that's not Gen AI, that's just ML, which is subtly different.
When you're out in the field talking presumably with other CISOs, security teams, how is that role evolving? Because the landscape is just getting bigger and bigger, more amorphous. AI brings a lot of great potential, but also opens the door for a lot of vulnerabilities and risks.
Yes.
How has your conversations with CISOs over the last few years, especially since ChatGPT was born, changed?
Well, the first thing is that a lot of people don't understand where AI is being used inside their environment.
That's what I'm hearing. There's a lot of blindness.
Yes. And for security people, we like visibility.
Yes.
We don't like dark corners. We hate those.
Yeah.
That's what keeps us awake at night, dark corners. And so a lot of the organizations are still learning about the AI lifecycle, MLSecOps as we call it, right? Okay. And MLSecOps has a similar path to DevSecOps.
Okay.
But they do experiments. If you say to a security person, hey, they're experimenting, and it's going to put these experiments in production, you kind of freak out. But if you don't understand that mentality, also the attack vectors in production are different. When we build a piece of software, put a piece of software out there, it runs, and then maybe it's a bug or a feature request, that's what causes a change. With AI, it could be that it gets poisoned. It could be that models could be stolen. They could, the data goes out of date. So there's a different life cycle, and we have to monitor. So from the point of view of CISOs, a lot of them are saying, yes, I know I need to do it. A lot of them are trying to do it manually. We have discovered what I call weaponized LLMs, not malicious. They've actually turned it. And just the act of downloading an LLM could attack a workstation.
Right.
So I think there's new attack vectors and more data, and also a new group of people, data scientists, who are coding that we need to embrace as a security community and enable and help them, support them, What
differentiates JFrog here? How are you enabling organizations to reduce the impact of security efforts? Because you're talking about, the evolution of the CISOs.
Yes.
Sometime and the need and the demand for that role for visibility.
Yes.
How is JFrog coming in there and saying, we got you?
Well, it's not just CISOs, the CIOs, the CTOs, the business owners, they're all looking for simplification. Right, a lot of times we've done this sort of knee-jerk reaction where we're looking for point solutions. And the platform which is what JFrog kind of plays in, is we're going from the far left of design all the way into production. We're providing a framework to hang your tools around so you have a consistent, easier path. You're starting to simplify. We're starting to reduce the number of tools because...
I was going to ask about that, yeah.
We don't have... Not all the companies are using all the features.
Sure.
They're not using the data. I mean, they're generating S-bombs all over the place, but they don't know why.
Right.
So, we help them with that sort of strategy about how to streamline and simplify, makes it easier for compliance reporting, regulatory compliance, risk, attack surface, all those areas can be simplified. And it's not like we're trying to be the be-all, end-all, but we can provide the framework for you to build a simpler, easier life for everybody, not just devs, security professionals, the operations people, all those people. We can make life
lines
easier.
of business, yes.
Yes.
Yes. I was just talking about sales and marketing data being compromised, for example. What if a company's sales and marketing data, there's so much rich customer data in there. What if it's hacked and companies probably don't care unless they can't get access to it?
Yes.
The access.
Yes.
That is I'm paralyzed.
Yes.
Have to have access to my customer data to be able to still transact business.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about contextualized security.
Right.
What does that mean and how are you enabling that?
So a big thing is there are lots of tools. It's almost like we're beating our chest and saying, we found these many vulnerabilities, we found this many secrets.
Yeah, yeah.
The problem with that is that you need quality.
Absolutely.
And quality data means actually, is it really applicable to my world? I have a saying which is one bad function doesn't make a bad software package.
Okay.
If they're not calling the bad function, you're okay.
Yes.
As you start it. So you need to have tools there that start saying, yes, you're using the bad function, you need to reassess. And it might be, as I put it, you don't necessarily need to upgrade a package, you just need to use a different call that might be safer or better.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so JFrog has tools which allows you to reduce that noise by that 80%. And that 80% noise is a reduction in noise for the developers, the AppSec, the security, operations, because it's less noise. By having that contextual perspective and having, I'm actually using the bad function, I should stop doing this, or no, everything just it's a ripple effect. So by providing that contextual analysis and saying, okay, actually, you're okay, you don't need to worry about this. Where you have to publish an S-bomb and somebody says, you go through this with the product security team, we scanned it, it says it's bad. Well, no, actually, we've done the assessment, here's the report of my S-bomb, it says it's not applicable. All of a sudden, life gets faster, easier, deals get done faster.
So you're providing that visibility, essentially.
Well,
that simplification, that visibility, that security teams, developers, lines of business just have to have these days.
And the lovely thing is, so for developers say it's a bad function, and go, great. With the contextual analysis, you actually say, on this line, you're using this command, and change it. So we're actually pointing them there, and then we're showing them the actual data of why it's bad. So we're educating them.
Light bulb goes off.
Yeah, I like to turn programmers into hackers. Sorry.
Ethical hackers?
Ethical hackers.
Ethical hackers.
Got it.
Last question for you, Paul. Favorite JFrog customer story or field story that you have that really shines the light on the value that JFrog is delivering across organizations, that simplification, that visibility. Favorite story?
So I like working with customers to help create a story which they can communicate at all levels of the organization.
Absolutely.
So showing them the vision of how their whole pipeline looks, how they've got consistency, the KPIs, the measurement, and they understand all of a sudden this is an ecosystem that needs to be exposed to everybody, and everybody needs to understand how the software supply chain works and what the responsibilities are. And so I like it when they say, actually this is great, JFrog can help us with our whole life cycle, with all our tools, and actually help us get faster, better, and and get a grip of. We've done studies where we can reduce the tech debt.
Oh, wow.
And make it manageable. I mean, I've never come across a company where they, I've finished, or, I've got some customers saying they're like 10%, but they're the exceptions.
Sure.
For most people, the battle between feature and bug fix, every time you do a sprint...
It's just that. It's a battle.
Yeah.
Exactly. Last question, I lied. One more. What excites you about the state of the cybersecurity industry in 2025? Anything like positive, look in your crystal ball, rays of sunshine?
I like the potential of AI.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that it's always evolving. The reason I'm in security is I don't want to be bored. If I'm bored, it's a dangerous world. And there are always new challenges. Yeah. And I love the fact that we can help protect the world. Yeah. That for me is a big thing.
That's awesome. I'm sure never a dull moment in your role. Paul, thank you so much for
it's a pleasure, truly.
For talking to me today on Techstrong TV, coming back to our program, really sharing how you're really delivering contextualized security and enabling things in a complex world to become more simplified and more visible. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you so much. Been truly a pleasure.
It was a great pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. For Paul Davis, I'm Lisa Martin. You're watching Techstrong TV Live, Day 2 RSAC. Stick around. Our next guest joins us in just a minute. Welcome back to Techstrong TV. This is Lisa Martin coming to you live from the show floor at RSAC in San Francisco, where there's about 45,000 folks. This is Techstrong TV's 10th year of covering this massive event in cybersecurity. We're having great conversations yesterday, today, which you know, because you've been watching, with leading cybersecurity experts. Happy to see one of my old colleagues, Amit Sinha here, the CEO of DigiCert. It's so great to see you again.
Great to see you too, Lisa.
Yeah.
We talked about a year ago, and I'm excited to be back here.
I am too. I'm going to brag on you for a minute.
Okay.
I did some LinkedIn stalking. Author of 50 patents, 34 issued, 16 pending, 25 published journal and conference papers, 3 book chapters, 4 theses, dozens of white papers. How do you find the time to do all this and lead a company?
That was in the past. I had good mentors, good teammates, right?
Yeah.
And hey, it's the team that makes it happen, ultimately.
Absolutely. Being surrounded by a great team is everything. But you've been featured on CNBC, CNN. Here you are with us. What is going on at DigiCert? Give me kind of the rundown since we last spoke.
Well, since we last spoke, a lot has happened in the industry, Lisa.
Yes.
DigiCert, as you know, is a global leader in digital trust, and digital trust is foundational infrastructure that makes sure that all our digital interactions are secure, they are trustworthy, they are private, right? And this whole industry is going through a massive renaissance, right? Let me give you a few areas where this change is happening. Just 2 weeks ago, the Browser Forum passed a new mandate, which now requires digital certificates, which is kind of the underpinning of all this trust fabric. The validity of those certificates will go down from 398 days, just over a year, to now 47 days. It's like 8x reduction. So think about your passport. If it instead of a 5-year validity, if it was expiring every 47 days, I mean, that'd be crazy, right?
Yeah.
Now it's safe, because if someone stole it or if it was out in the wild, you don't have to worry about exposure. But what that means is the industry now needs fail-safe automation, right?
Yes.
Because all of the, think of all the websites, the apps, the software,
Which
the
are only
machines.
just proliferating.
Just exploding.
Right? Yes.
And we haven't even gone to AI agents, and we'll get there.
Yes.
With all of these non-human identities, using PKI, you need a system that can centrally govern it and provide fail-safe automation, right? So that's a huge change that's happening, and we're talking to many customers about how do I get command and control over millions of these cryptographic assets that might be within an organization, and they provide you secure communication and authenticated devices. So that's one huge change. And riding on top of that is this whole quantum thing, right? So the math that secures all the trust fabric is based on these classical algorithms that are now vulnerable to quantum computers. And we've known this for a while, but what has happened is, since we spoke, just earlier this year, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they're all coming up with their bigger, better, faster versions of their quantum chips.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to have a ChatGPT-like moment where one day we'll wake up and say, wow, these quantum computers are here, and all of our trust fabric based on these math problems that we deemed were secure is suddenly broken, right?
Wow.
So that's a huge thing that's happening in the industry, where people are preparing for post-quantum cryptography. And those standards exist today. It's just work needs to happen to go through this upgrade cycle.
And how quickly, based on the acceleration. I mean, ChatGPT was born, a couple years ago, 2.5 years ago, and it just catalyzed this revolution. I mean, AI is not a new concept. It's been around for a long time.
Exactly.
But once it was launched, every company had what's our AI story?
Yeah.
We have to have an AI story.
Yeah.
But the good guys have access to the tools. The bad actors have access to the tools. It's like fighting fire with fire.
Exactly.
How do you conceptually explain digital trust to customers, and what does that mean for them to be able to deliver the brand value that they expect, that they have to deliver?
Yeah. So, Lisa, digital trust, again, is foundational infrastructure, right? How do you know you're talking to the right bank website, not a fake one? How do I know that my app-to-app communication is secure and private? You sign digital documents. How do you know that the deed on that PDF doc you signed is going to be not tampered with and hold up in a court of law 10 years from now, right? How do you know that the software update you got on your iPhone really came from Apple?
Right.
All of this is based on the same PKI, the same cryptography, right?
Yeah.
And so that's foundational infrastructure, and DigiCert, 90% of Fortune 500 use DigiCert to get to that trust fabric that I talk about.
As that fabric undergoes changes and upgrades, how do you keep up? I mean, the speed with which things are going is mind-boggling.
Exactly.
For organizations that might not have the digital trust fabric or the visibility to understand where are all of our vulnerabilities.
100%. And
how do you keep up with the changes to the fabric?
Yeah, so again, step one, you need a system and you need automation, right?
Yeah.
So I talk to half a dozen customers every week.
Nice.
And these conversations are happening where, look, even going from 398 days to 47 days, right? Now you need fail-safe automation. What does that mean? That means, well, I need to be able to validate in an automatic way.
Yeah.
What do I need for validation? First, I need to be able to prove that I control this domain or this machine. So my DNS and my PKI need to work together, right? Otherwise, what's going to happen is that two things. You won't have automation, so you'll have humans in the loop, and then it'll lead to outages. It'll lead to exposure because you weren't able to update, the PKI on a particular machine because the person was away on vacation or something else happened. So you need these two core systems. I call that electricity and water on the internet. PKI and DNS to work together.
Yeah.
And what DigiCert 1 does is gives you a single platform to fully manage and automate these two foundational pieces of digital trust, right? So now imagine millions of machines, so many domains to manage. Your DNS team and PKI team no longer need to be in silos, and they get a central system where I can validate that, hey, this is Amazon.com. Yes, Amazon really controls it. Oh, it's 46 days. Let's go ahead and update the cert and repeat that for millions of private machines that you might have internally. So that's kind of a huge thing that's happening in the industry, and DigiCert's leading the way with lots and lots of our customers with that change in standards, and that actually prepares you for post-quantum cryptography as well.
Okay.
Because what is post-quantum? It's just new math. So think about, back to your passport example. Now there's a better passport, right? More tamper-proof.
Yeah.
But the underlying process hasn't changed, right? You still need to validate. You still need to manage and automate.
But the automation is critical.
That's the part that we are driving to. And DigiCert 1 now supports all the post-quantum standards that have been approved by NIST as of fall last year.
So you're already getting ahead of the curve here.
So we're already ahead of the curve, and we have many customers who are, leading the way. And, we do a survey where we go through the grief cycles, right? Because this is once in a 30-year upgrade. And 2 years ago, when I used to talk about post-quantum cryptography, most people would say, hey, that's a problem out there.
Down the road.
And now, you have CISOs and CXOs saying, what's our quantum strategy? Are we prepared? Do we have, an inventory of all our assets? Do we know what are our crown jewels and what do we need to upgrade first? So the conversation has gone from what's quantum to what can we do about it.
So getting proactive?
100%.
That's outstanding, because I always think, in cybersecurity, are we always behind? Will we ever be able to be proactive with just how quickly things are transpiring and how the risk surface just continues to expand amorphously? And we have more data, more software, more apps. That train isn't slowing down anytime soon.
It isn't. And look, when you start adding things like AI agents, right? I mean, customers are asking, well, you're helping us manage software and devices and machines. Now here's an AI agent. This is is it software? Is it a machine? Is it, how long will it last?
How will it be managed?
How will it be managed? So one of the foundational principles in security is to separate identity and authorization from the capabilities of the underlying software or agent, right?
Okay.
So think about it this way, Lisa. I mean, a year from now, I might have 6 agents working for me. Maybe I have a Zoom avatar that shows up, right? Maybe there's an agent approving expense reports or doing mundane things. But maybe I have an agent that's negotiating a contract, right? What do I need? I need a kill switch on the agent, right? I need an audit log of what are the things that it did, because ultimately it's acting on my behalf.
Right.
And so I need to be able to, first have a tamper-proof identity. I need to have a tamper-proof record of what it did.
Right.
And if I don't like something, I need a kill switch to be able to say, you're no longer authorized to do that, right? What's all that? That's back to, again, PKI, right? How do I authorize, we know how to authorize a machine. We know how to say this is authentic software. There are lifetimes associated with it where you can go and say, well, after 47 days, it's no longer valid, right? So we're bringing similar concepts now to AI agent trust, right? Where you can say, look, these agents are very powerful, but identity, access, authorization is in my control, right?
Yes.
Versus saying, this agent goes rogue and does whatever it wants.
Right. Well, the agentic AI explosion, just another example of this catalyst in every industry, in every vertical. I talk a lot with chief marketing officers, and everyone is embracing agentic AI. It's part of their KPIs as integrated marketing organizations. So we're just going to see that continue to explode. But being able to, you put the right word, get control over it. Is that a possibility? Because they're proliferating so fast.
Well, look, again, you need to combat AI with AI. We hear that theme over and over again.
Yes, we do.
But, we need to learn from things in the past and be proactive and apply it, right? The examples I gave about separating identity and access from and being able to govern it in a way, right? Is very, very, very crucial.
It's not a nice to have anymore for organizations.
Yeah,
it's table stakes.
Yeah, and I kind of liked your proactive angle, right? We have customers who are very proactive. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I was with Zoom, and we work with Velkami, who's the president of Zoom, and his team, and it's a great example of a company and a customer that's very proactive about these things. So let me give you 3-4 simple examples.
Yeah.
We talked about post-quantum cryptography. Zoom Workspace now supports end-to-end quantum-safe encryption. So they're already ahead of the curve, right? Zoom, when Zoom clients talk to Zoom servers, they use DigiCert PKI to kind of secure that communication. Now, other things too, like the industry is moving to 47-day certs. Zoom's already rotating these certs now on a 6-month basis, right? Okay. Their code signing certificates are being rotated on a monthly basis, and they're able to, do majority of their digital trust infrastructure on a fully automated basis, with integrations and platform support from DigiCert. So that's a great example of a customer who's being proactive, who's ahead of the curve, and that's what you need in the security industry today.
Absolutely, and like I said, it's not a nice to have anymore. It's essential.
Not.
But so many organizations, I think, struggle, and you probably see this in all of your customer conversations. Where do we start? It's so overwhelming. Yep. But knowing that there is a way, with DigiCert, for example, to enable organizations across industries, across verticals, to become proactive with something that's coming is enlightening. I'm so glad that you shared that story. Last question for you. I think I saw that DigiCert is on the track to reach $1 billion ARR.
That is true.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What's next? What can we expect next from DigiCert?
Look, we just want to deliver awesome services and an awesome platform for our customers. I think in the next 4 years, PKI and digital trust is going to go through massive renaissance, right? With quantum, with the things that we talked about. You're right, many customers say, where do we start?
Yeah.
And, I'm doing trust summits now. We've hit 3 cities. We're going to go to 4 more in the next month or so.
Excellent.
And we're just, going and helping customers start their PKI modernization journey, get prepared for quantum safety, figure out how do we bring digital trust in the real world with AI agents, right? Those are all things. So, we're very excited, and look, $1 billion is just a milestone,
That's
right?
a big milestone.
But it's not like the race finishes there, right?
No.
We just want to continue to grow and serve our customers.
And continue to be proactive.
100%.
Ahmed, it was so great to have you back on Techstrong TV. I always enjoy our conversations. But thank you for sharing what's going on with digital trust, why it's so foundational, how the fabric is changing, but how you're helping organizations actually get ahead of the curve. Really appreciate your insights.
Thank you, Lisa. I always enjoy our conversation.
Likewise. For Ahmed Sinha, I'm Lisa Martin. You're watching Techstrong TV live from day 2 of RSAC, coming to you from San Francisco. We'll be back with our next guest, so stick around.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Techstrong TV. I'm Lisa Martin, live from RSAC at Moscone West in San Francisco. We're going to be talking all things security all the way through Thursday. Some great content we've already filmed. Hopefully you've been watching. More great content coming your way. My next guest is Naomi Buckwalter. She's the Senior Director of Product Security at Contrast Security. Naomi, it's great to have you on Techstrong.
It's good to be here.
Thank you for joining me.
I am so excited. How are you today?
I'm excellent.
Awesome.
My feet don't hurt yet. It's day one. That's why I'm
wearing
heels.
And I hope that is true for the
sitting.
rest of it.
Me too.
Fantastic.
That's one thing about conferences. You can guarantee a ton of steps and sore feet.
And no lines in the women's room.
That's true.
Yeah,
that is true. That's one plus for us girls. So I love the tagline at Contrast Security. You can't stop what you can't see. Tell the audience a little bit about Contrast Security. What is it that you guys are solving for customers?
Oh, interesting. Well, if I could give you an elevator pitch,
yes.
We do application security in production. That's the easiest way I can explain it.
I love that.
Right? It's so easy to understand. Yeah. Well, if you think about it, we have other things in security production things. Like we have our CrowdStrikes that's running in production boxes, right?
Okay.
Like we have different agents that run in production. If you think about the vendor space, there's not a ton of application security happening in production, in runtime. A lot of it's before the runtime happens. So you've got your static scans, your SCAs, all the scans that happen in QA and dev and all the things that aren't actually production.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder why. It's kind of weird. It's weird.
Well, you were saying, that doing AppSec in production isn't crazy. It's smart.
It's so smart.
Why aren't more folks?
Wait, did you say that or did I say that?
I got that from
okay.
you.
So smart. You're smart. Actually, it is smart. Because,
why aren't folks
because it's where behavior happens. It's where the users are. It's where the attacks are. Why aren't we doing more security where the bad stuff is happening?
Right.
Why do we assume we're testing for all the cases prior to releasing the thing in production?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you why. I know it's smart. We just said it. You said it. But I think it's because people are scared of doing AppSec in production. I think just tech in the past, we've had downtime as an issue. Your company is like, no, we need to have this uptime 99.999 or whatever, right, to 5.9 sync you. And I think it's put us back a lot. So if you think about some of the bigger breaches in the past, it really comes down to you probably just had this old server running with an unpatched thing for the longest time. Yeah. And you were afraid of taking it offline, off production, right, just to fix it and then put it back up. Yeah. Because your business is like, no, we need all the uptime, we need all the revenue. And it becomes this problem because you don't have the protections that you actually need in production.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, and it's like nobody wants to be the next headline for a breach, so it makes sense. Right.
I know.
I mean, the brand reputation, the churn that happens, nobody wants to be that. I mean, in this day and age, security attacks aren't, is it going to happen to us? It's when?
Oh, it's happening
It's how
now.
often?
It's happening
It's
now.
what is the cost it's going to cost my business?
Right.
So that alone, you think would make enough sense for them to put AppSec in production.
But I didn't even get to the biggest part. It's because we don't have the insight that we need in production, in our applications. We are really good as an industry of getting our network traffic understood, all the things that are happening on our hosts understood. We know all the things that are going on because we have observation, we have sensors in those areas. Yeah. What we don't have are those same sensors happening in our applications at runtime, in production. And now we're trying to say as a company, I think it's time. It's okay to do AppSec in production. It's okay, guys. Like I almost feel like here at RSA would be our unveiling. Yeah. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Our unveiling, like our unboxing for YouTubers.
Yeah.
So it would be our way of saying to the community, like, it's time. Shift left probably has failed.
Yeah. Well, how much of what you're doing at Contrast is really education and making these folks aware that it's time, and this is why that old playbook has to be thrown out because nobody wants to be the next headline.
And it's a little like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
If we had like an interpretive dance, maybe people would probably understand it more. Because it's sometimes they're like, "What are you talking about?" I had a dinner yesterday with somebody at a different company, someone who does static scanning. And it's like when I told him we should do AppSec in production, it's like I stabbed his child. Like his reaction to that was just like, oh, you could just tell his face. I was like, I'm sorry. Do I need to apologize right now? Like he was just so insulted, the fact that I even said that. Because it's so ingrained.
It's cultural.
In us. Right.
It's behavioral.
Exactly.
And that's
why?
hard to change.
Why?
But why? You're right.
Our critical thinking turns off whenever we are thrown another framework or another way of doing something. Oh, and everyone does it this way. Think of the thousands of other people here.
So I'm going to follow that line.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It's a bias that is not well understood by me just because I can see the issues. And most of us in AppSec actually do. Yeah. And here's another problem is security people traditionally don't have the best grasp of applications anyway. Okay. So what they do is, or what we do, is we kind of just say, hey, we're going to let the developers take care of it. We're going to do our scans. We're going to give them the issues, and then they're just going to magically fix it. That's not what the developers want to do, trust me. They want to build stuff fast. Yes. They want to make money. They want to go home and build cool shit at the end of the day. I'm sorry. They build cool shit and then call it a day. They see security people, and they always have, as a gate.
Yeah, a gate.
As a detractor to what they're trying to do.
As a, no, you can't
exactly.
do that. Yeah.
So what we're now saying is maybe that approach has failed us because think of all the issues that are still happening. OWASP top 10 hasn't changed in like 2 decades, right? How embarrassing for us. Now we're saying application security can be done without the developers. We don't need them anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know that sounds really like, who the heck are you, Karen?
Yeah.
But we haven't given this a shot enough to say that maybe it won't work, maybe it will. Yeah. Why not? Right.
So you're in effect enabling the optimal developer experience because you're pulling this out of their hands, and the AppSec folks can take the responsibility on in production.
Amazing. Do you have a newsletter? I want to sign up for your newsletter. That was really good. Yes, you do. Yeah.
So where are you talking? Who are you selling to? Is it the developers? Is it the security folks? Is it both? Is it the application owners?
Oh my gosh. Well, everyone and anyone who will write a check. But I will say we are targeting a new audience, and it's our SOC people, our security operations folks.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to sell them is more insight into the applications that are on their networks. Like all the applications and hosts that are on the machines that you care about. Run processes and things and accept traffic and do stuff with that traffic in your host that you should really know about, right? So we're giving them observations, more data, more insight into their application layer, into their APIs that they don't already have. Right. And I think our SOC, what we're hearing from the fields is that, wow, this is great. Like before it was just another network packet. Like I don't know what this is doing. Now it's, wow, it's not only do I know where this packet is going, what route it's hitting, what that route is doing, what it's executing in the host, or what data point it's hitting on the back end, right? Like now that we have all that insight, we can do something about it. If it's an application attack, we can block it because Contrast does that really well.
Yeah.
If it's a vulnerability that is out there, maybe we could tell the developers how to fix it. And we do that too. Not only do we block the attack, we can tell you where the vulnerability is, we can patch it, right? Like we have AI how to fix. Like we have all these cool tools that can just tell you how to fix it.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Well, that application detection and response technologies observability are game changing for organizations.
Yes.
It's like the tagline that I like, you can't stop what you can't see. They need to have that visibility.
Yeah.
But also, in a sense, getting out of the way of the developers, letting them have the optimal developer experience that they want, that they expect.
Yes.
But providing that visibility so the blinders are off.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're letting them do their job better.
Yes.
And you're doing your job better too as security people. Yeah. Security people can do application security. I know it's sometimes hard because we have to keep up with their technology. Yeah. But once we do, we can show them we're on the same team.
Right.
And then now you're building relationships. Now you're building culture on your teams.
Trust.
And trust. And that is 100% what you need when you're working with developers. Like, I had conversations where like, why are we doing it with you guys? We can ruin your life if we want to. Like that is an adversarial relationship.
Wow.
Right. This is not a person that I worked with, but I was just talking. They're like, we can ruin security people's lives if we want to. Like, why are they so mean to us, right? Right.
Wow. What's your favorite customer story of Contrast that you think this just perfectly shines a spotlight on what we do well and why we're doing it?
Well, it's funny because I'm a security practitioner. I'm my favorite customer. I actually use Contrast every single day.
Awesome. Drinking your own champagne.
Thank you. Oh, not the dog food thing?
No.
Champagne.
I like the champagne. I elevated it.
Thank you. It's so much better. Well, so I'm a security practitioner. I would not be working for a security vendor if I did not deeply believe in our products. Yeah. I am not even saying that lightly. Like, I understand how cringe it is to be here. I'm sorry, RSA. I love you. but it is cringe. And I will say, it's just like LinkedIn. It's like, why are you so cringe? Why do you have to do this cringe? It's security vendors doing too much, and it's not actually helping do security. So me, as a security practitioner, really appreciates a tool like Contrast because it makes my job so much easier. I don't have to do a scan and be like, here's 500 vulnerabilities at the static, and I haven't even validated each one. Good luck with that, developers. Like, I can give our developers actual vulnerabilities, actual vulnerable routes, things that have been exercised in our applications, which means endpoints that have been hit in production, because we know this is a route that has been used, and here's a vulnerability, here's an attack that happened, and then we could do something about it immediately. I don't have to wait for the patch.
Right.
I can do something in our tool. Contrast can be like, okay, we're going to block this for now, and then gives us some time to patch on the developer side.
Yeah.
And think about Log4Shell. It was the same way.
Yeah.
We blocked Log4Shell out of the box before anyone even knew Log4Shell was a thing. And now it buys the developers time, right? Because you're like, yeah, you're using old versions of Log4j that are vulnerable to Log4Shell. Go ahead and fix this thing.
Right.
And by the way, we have Contrast on the other side, acting as that last gate. Thank God we have them, you know?
You should be a developer's BFF.
I already am, Lisa. I don't know what you're talking about.
Of course you are. Naomi, it's been such a pleasure having you on Techstrong TV. Thank you for really explaining what you guys are doing so well, why AppSec in production is smart. We appreciate your insights and your candor as well.
Appreciate that.
For Naomi Buckwalter, I'm Lisa Martin. You're watching Techstrong TV live from RSAC. We'll join you again after a lunch break with our next guest, so stick around. Hey everyone, welcome back to Techstrong TV's live coverage of RSAC from San Francisco, Moscone West. We are in Broadcast Alley. This is our 10th year covering RSAC, and this is where the best of the best experts in cybersecurity and AI are this week. We appreciate you tuning in. I'm very excited for this next conversation. Sol Rashidi is here. She is the CEO and founder of Executive AI, and you do so many things, Sol. Great to have you on Techstrong TV. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to brag on you a bit because I LinkedIn stalked you.
Okay.
You have 10 patents.
I do. Working on the 11th one right now.
You're a best-selling author. You're a top 50 women in tech. I love that. I get goosebumps. And this is awesome. Forbes AI Maverick of the 21st century? You're literally a maverick.
I've been lucky. Far from it. I think with the pace of change and how everything's going from, we're all just barely keeping up. But I was fortunate enough to get a few labels and titles along the way.
Well, that's fantastic. Talk to me a little bit about Executive AI. You are the founder. You're the managing director. This is a consulting practice?
So it was interesting because it happened completely by accident. I've always been a C-suite, a part of really amazing Fortune 100 companies, like some of the largest firms that you've ever even heard of. Like I've always represented them as the chief data officer, chief data and analytics officer. I was the enterprise's first chief AI officer, appointed back in 2016.
Okay.
So I've always served these companies, and I've always been brought in to build the capabilities, scale the capabilities. And so that's kind of where a lot of my practitioner experience came from. And then I left enterprise, and I discovered that, I helped IBM launch Watson back in 2011.
Wow.
And so from 11 to 2015, my job was to fly around the world, work with these enterprises, help them establish their AI strategy, their use cases, and help them deploy. No different than how everyone started in 2023. So I'm just watching the world kind of go, I'm like, yeah, we did this, and we made that mistake, and we did this, and we made that mistake. But no one's calling out their mistakes. No one's calling out the lessons learned. And
they're so valuable.
I always say you learn from the mistakes.
Absolutely.
And so, fail forward, fail fast, but you learn. So why should people have to go through and repeat what a slew of us, quite frankly, went through nearly more than a decade ago? Yeah. So Executive AI was created because I think there's a lot of C-suite executives. I think there's a lot of leaders. I think there's a lot of companies that are learning and earning, meaning they're learning on the fly.
Right.
but they don't necessarily understand what the bottlenecks are. And I say in the world of AI, you've got data, infrastructure, and talent. Infrastructure is all the tech stacks, the tools. Like it's not about GPUs and CPUs and workloads. Like we've solved that. Data security is a major hurdle right now. And then talent preparation, because the way we're going to market with artificial intelligence, and I saw this back in 2012 and 13, it's we're going to do AI to increase productivity and capacity, which by default means we can run leaner. And that is never the case. So the goal isn't to increase capacity so you can displace employees. The entire intention is how do you give them time to reflect and realign on the bigger business problems. So